Welcome to TQ Talks, where taxes meet planning. Here's your host, Craig White.
Welcome to another episode of TQ Talks. I'm your host, Craig White, and today we are talking about vacations and travel and fun and sun. It's the summertime, man, and listen, we've seen enough social media rants about people coming out and talking, hey, you and your friends, you and your boys, you and your girls take a trip to wherever, and it's an automatic business vacation. It's a write-off. You could write this off. I'm going to meet blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wow, Lord Jesus, help me. So we want to try to help you to have a better understanding of business travel and vacations. And, as the title suggests or puts in there, can your business legitimately pay for your vacation? Which I know all of us want to figure that out, right? We want to understand what's going on. Like I said, summer is here. You have the spouse, the kids, your partner, whoever, friends, family, and you're legitimately trying to figure out what can and cannot be done and how much of this social media foolishness is just that, foolishness, and how much of it is actual information. Why am I taking the vacation? Who can I bring? What can I write off? Because Lord knows I'm spending too much as is. And we get it. We totally understand. So we're going to jump right into this. This is a very detailed topic, so I'm going to try to give you as much information as I possibly can without rambling on forever. Obviously, if you're one of our clients, this is something we discuss as we're closing out our second quarter tax planning into our third quarter because, again, it's summer when a lot of people take vacation, and also in the winter months, this is something that comes up and it's a hot topic. But without further ado, let's jump into it, right? So one of the biggest myths that we hear is if we talk business on the trip, then hey, the whole trip is deductible. Now that's some bull, right? The IRS definitely has rules as to what will denote a vacation/business event versus you guys just going on vacation and saying, hey, business, and we get to write it off. The reality is a conversation does not automatically create a business trip. The IRS is looking for, is it a legitimate business purpose? Like, is there something going on that has to be going on? Is it planned, right? Are there planned business activities? Are there documentation, or is there documentation that's going along with it? Do you have records supporting why the trip occurred, right? That's a spur of the moment thing we talk to clients, and I'm going to walk through a scenario more than likely with you. So a vacation with a business conversation is still a vacation, right? You just talking to your whoever about something in business does not make it business. So let's start off with the IRS's guidelines, right? First thing they want to know is, what is the purpose? That means that they're trying to make sure that you're asking yourself, or they're going to be asking you, why are you taking the trip? What business purpose does this serve? Who am I meeting? What activities are scheduled? What business benefit am I expecting? Right? So one of the things we always see, again, is the group trip. You guys plan a trip. It's me and my whoever's, and we're flying to whatever, and we're going to have a meeting, and that's cool. Now, in theory, there is a business discussion. It could be a planned event. Again, I can't say it's a no for that statement because, for example, if you guys are having an annual retreat for your business and your business partners are going there, guess what? Makes total sense. If family members are part of this, then of course they're included. But even if they're not, so if I'm inviting family and friends and we're all flying out to, these are my business partners, of course, and they're bringing their families and friends and we're paying for it as a business, yeah, it's a write-off because this is an annual treat. Makes total sense in that there's a purpose to it. The IRS is easily seeing, hey, we're trying to build employee morale. We're trying to build camaraderie. There's definitely going to be things that are segmented and scheduled. And, it's pretty easy. If you guys have never or been a part of a bigger firm, they do these all the time, and it makes total sense. But there has to be, again, what we're talking about for this segment, a purpose. It has to be a real purpose for it. And it cannot be wake up tomorrow, decide to do something. It has to be planned. It has to be coordinated and ordinary and necessary. You'll hear throughout probably all these podcasts, because that's one of the biggest things for the IRS. It has to be ordinary and necessary. So examples, like I just said, an annual retreat. You could do industry, you can do conferences, you could do client meetings. That happens. Yes, I know people say, we're going to fly to meet a client. Yes, you can actually fly to meet a client or meet with someone on a, again, I call it a vacation, but being in a certain place that some people would deem vacation oriented. But again, there's a purpose, right? Did you schedule this? Are you guys having a legitimate meeting? What is the expectation from that meeting? So yes, meeting 1, 2, 3 or more clients, whatever, is definitely something. Are you doing a training, or is there training events going on? Is there networking happening? Is there business development? That's another one. What do we always, because part of our stuff is real estate, we're doing site visits, right? So we'll travel to see different areas. As a matter of fact, I just spoke to Patrick yesterday about us going to, I want to say Orlando, but it's not, like Gaines or something. I can't remember the exact area, but it's outside of Orlando, but that's part of it. So yeah, if we travel up there to do a site visit because we're trying to figure out we're buying more land or building, whatever the case is, then that definitely counts. Vendor meetings count. I don't know, strategic, as I struggle with that, planning sessions, those actually count, right? But again, are we flying to Hawaii to have it? That's to be determined, right? The other part of it, vacation versus business, is what a lot of people call the 51% rule, is what we like to say. So the IRS doesn't specifically say that you need to spend 51% of your time on business, but everybody knows it. They say the majority of your time, right? That's how they list it, I think. And so ultimately for us, that means over 50%, which is thus the 51% rule, which is what a lot of us adopt. I will tell you that when you are putting together schedules and formats and trying to figure things out, keep in mind that, knock on wood, in the event of an audit, the IRS is going to eliminate some time. So we are realistically telling people, hey, don't plan for 51% of a meeting, right, of your day out of an 8-hour day, right? If it's 4 hours, we're splitting it down. We're saying, 4 hours and 10 minutes. Try to do a lot longer, because there's probably going to be times, unless you have just immaculate records, that they're going to exclude. So try to keep above the 50% line, because that's how the entire trip becomes all business, right? Because you're exceeding that whole 50% discussion, which again, we talk about the 51% rule. So the primary purpose, right? That word, primary purpose of the travel is business oriented, and that is going to be regulated by the amount of time you spend there. So things that you might not know that count, because we always talk about, okay, I spent 3 days, I flew this way, I flew or I drove, whatever the case is. The IRS counts travel days towards that time frame. So if you're flying, I'm making it up, for 3 days, meaning you have a 3-day conference, you fly out on a Tuesday, the conference is on Wednesday, and you fly up back on Thursday, guess what? Tuesday and Thursday do count, because travel days do count towards your 50%, which is a good thing. It helps you. Conference days definitely count, because I'm in it. Meeting days, client visit days, training days. So all those things count. Things that are not going to probably count. If you go to the beach, but I'm going to be specific. What if you got there on a Tuesday morning, I'm making up a perfect world, 24 hours, and you spent 5-6 hours in conferences and trainings? You going to the beach does not exclude that day, because you've met the rule. Does that make sense? You have all the information already there to show that the majority of your day was spent in business, and it's an ordinary and necessary trip. You have all your documentation, all your ducks in a row, so it's all good. Vacation activities and personal excursions and sightseeing, those are going to be a nay-nay, a no-no, if you're trying to write those off. If we're just trying to get the day to count, then it counts if we're doing what we already spoke about. So again, 51%. The IRS isn't asking whether the IRS is not caring about the percent. They're making sure that the word is primary. That's what you have to keep. But they're saying, is this business trip, as we're putting giant air quotes out, is it primarily business? If you can meet those qualifications, then you're looking good. Things that you can deduct, which again, we talk about a lot of these things, but things that are self-explanatory. Why am I struggling with words today? Airfare, train tickets, car rentals, Ubers, what are we talking? Taxi, parking, tolls, things that people don't pay attention to. When you're tipping people, these actually count. So when we're talking on travel for business and you're paying someone for luggage handling or you're paying someone at the hotel, those things count. Now, obviously, you want to keep record, but yeah, you can write that stuff off. If you rent a car, we can do that. And here's a doozy for you, right? If you're making, let me watch what I say. If you're planning a business trip, car rental is important. Airfare I'll get to, but car rental is important. Because here's the whole point of this. If I were renting one car to drive from here to, I'm making it up, I would never do this, but God knows, Vegas, I can write that off. It's a legitimate trip. We're having actual conference there. It's all scheduled. It's, CPA conference, whatever, tax planning conference that is hosted by whoever, and myself and Patrick, let's say, for example, are making this trip to go there. Easy. Everybody knows, yes, it makes sense. What if we bring the kids with us, right? The kids being in the car does not negate the rental expense, because whether I did it by myself, with my business partner, or with a kid, I'd pay the exact same price, right? Note to self. So if this is what you're doing, what I'm saying to you is at least you could get the rental portion paid for, even if the other people that are going with you are not going on the actual business portion of the trip. They're going to go with you to the location, and that's the end of it, but at least the rental is covered under the business. And yes, that's legit. What about the airfare? Nay. That's a nay. We're going to get into the spouses and the partners and the kids later on in the podcast, but obviously it's only going to be for me because I'm the one traveling, or for my business partner. Lodging, we talk about where we need to talk about. Of course you can do this. You can do hotels, whatever business lodging, doesn't really matter. As long as you're paying for it, Airbnb, and again, it's already met all the other qualifications, then it's cool. Nights associated with business activities, end of story. That's what it's going to end up being. Meals, because we see everybody writes off meals. You go to Chick-fil-A and you write it off. No, hold on. If it's a business meal from a business travel, yes, it's generally deductible, but guys, it's 50%. It's 50%. That's it. And of course, the meals are going to have a business connection, right? It's pretty simple to understand. The expense has to be ordinary and necessary. And the reason we say that is because people like to do these crazy, extravagant meals and lobster and caviar and all this other stuff. And again, if it's ordinary and necessary, that's not a problem. But lavish and extravagant expenses can create big problems with the IRS. You can't just say, hey, I'm taking poo-poo out to this dinner because they are a great client, and spend $3,000 on dinner and tell them it's great. They want to see a return on investment. That's the one I'm telling you that it's going to be. So if you're going to take him out to that $3,000 or whoever it is, he or she or they, to this $3,000 dinner, you better be able to say to the IRS, yeah, I paid $3,000 for the dinner, but do you see that this poo-poo and them have put in $50,000 into my business as clients? Small price to pay, because all of us are going to give $3,000 to make 50. 100%, everybody's going to do that. So it's not a big deal. But I'm not spending $3,000 if poo-poo and them are just paying $300 for a tax return. That makes no sense, right? So a meal isn't deductible simply because you're eating and discussing business. There has to be a whole thing on there. We've done enough posts on a business meal, but maybe we'll do a podcast on that as well, breaking that down detailed. Now here we are with the spouse, the partner, right? What's happening with that? Everybody asks, well, if we're doing this and I'm going here or there, can I bring them along? The answer generally is it isn't. They're not deductible. But, big giant but, what is their role in the business? If your spouse has a purpose for attending, right? Their attendance should be a benefit to the business. And if that person is a benefit and they have a role in your business, then yes, you can bring them. It's fine. Just because you're married to the business owner doesn't mean that it's going to be a deduction. But if you have all the things we talked about, that you have a legitimate role in the business, or they do, there's a business purpose for them attending, and it's a benefit to your business, guess what? You should be able to write that person off. I'll use an example. If my spouse is a videographer, or is that even the right word? Videographer, I guess, whatever. They do video shoots, and they're my mark, and I pay them to do marketing. and I'm having an event and I fly them out, guess who I'm paying for? My spouse. Guess who's attending? My spouse. Guess who's doing work for my business? My spouse. So them being there has a specific purpose. They have a role in my business. They're not employed by me because they're probably subcontractors, right? But ultimately, I'm allowed to do that. And we're going to get into that as well. So the kids, here goes the kid part. Well, what about the kids? Kids are the same thing. Now, in the previous podcast, I talked about hiring your kids, right? And this is part of what comes in. If your kid is part of the business, then this is a no-brainer. Do they work in the business? Well, then what are we talking about? Then of course they should be there. Do they have actual responsibilities? Duh. Yeah, they can't just come and sit around and lick lollipops and hang out. Theoretically, they should be doing something. If they're attending for business reasons and they are part of my business and I can document their role and what they did, which I would be doing anyway, then yeah, 100% I can write them off. It's a wonderful thing. Yes, they are part of my business. No big deal. Now, as I touched on earlier, and I want to come back to employees and contractors, subcontractors, I like to say. That's different and it can be confusing. In general, employees are easier because if I'm paying them a salary, so employees would mean W-2 people. If we're paying them a salary, then them attending is not a big deal. They can come to meetings and conferences and whatever the case is because I pay them. They're part of my business. No big deal. Independent contractors, right, subcontractors, it's the same general business purpose rule that applies to them, but you have to really probe and make sure this makes sense. Why are they attending? Same thing we always ask. What business function are they performing? I gave the example of my spouse being the videographer. I hope I'm saying that word right. And that makes total sense. But if my spouse is not doing anything that helps my business, then even them being a subcontractor, let's say that I pay throughout the year, may not benefit me depending on what the event is that I'm going to. Again, if I'm having an annual retreat and I pay for my subcontractor to go, that's different. But if I'm having a conference and they're just coming along there has to be a purpose. There has to be responsibilities. Would you still pay for the trip if the IRS reviewed it, right? I always ask that. If it looks like BS to you, it's probably BS to them. So again, videographer, we spoke about a consultant, right? Assisting if my spouse, who is an attorney, funny enough, I need her for legal counsel on something that we're talking. Maybe we're having a discussion about a contract with a potential client. Then yes, guess what? Bring her, pay her. It is what it is. Me and my business partner are footing the bill because we need her, right? It is what it is. Contractor helping with, let's say, deliveries or setup or tear down or sales. Those are easy. You put them in the position because they're actually working. So it's really not about the title. It's more about what they're actually doing and am I documenting this information correctly, which leads us right into good timing, into documentation, which is always important. Documentation, guys. That's super important for the IRS. They're going to want you to keep good records. So, registrations. Like if you're registering for a conference, make sure you have it. Event tickets, agendas, meeting notes. Very important, especially when you're not. Listen, meeting notes are essential. Time, what you spoke about, everything. Calendars, emails. We tell people all the time, if you're going to go to here, there, and everywhere, and it's something you're planning on, send out that email. Send that calendar reminder. Hey, Mary, can't wait to see you in, 2 months, whatever that date is, so we can discuss 3, 4, 5, and 6. Because I'm making the trip planned, I'm knowing that it's ordered and necessary for me to conduct business, and I'm setting a pattern. I'm telling them, hey, this is something I already planned with Mary. Mary and I have been talking for months. She knows that I'm coming, or he knows that I'm coming, or they know that I'm coming, and this is what we're going to be doing. Travel itineraries are important to keep. Hotel receipts, again, but you're using your business card. We're pretty sure you are, right? Because you guys are now savvy. You've been listening to us for a long time, so this is something easy for you. Airfare confirmations, mileage logs, of course, when applicable, because we talked about rental cars. It's pretty simple. So if your only proof is going to be some Instagram photos, you guys got a lot of things to think about, because that's going to be a real major problem. Some of the mistakes we notice that people make, especially when talking about this stuff, is they're immediately trying to turn their vacation into business. And even though we have conversations, we say, hey, it's summer, second quarter planning, third quarter planning, it's vacation season, ... The primary discussion for us is, what are you doing business-wise? And can you now add a vacation? right? Can that be something, theoretically that you could make it dual purpose for you? But the primary purpose should be business, should always be business, right? No business purpose, you got a problem. No documentation, you got a problem. Paying for your spouse or your children or contractors with no documentation and no business role is another mistake. That's another problem. Creating documentation after the trip, my God, that is something that people try to do all the time, and it's the worst. Proactive, not reactive people. You need to have this stuff because these things are supposed to be planned, so the information should be available before, not after. So when the audit comes is not when you're trying to scramble to get the information. You should already have this in there. So in closing, business travel can absolutely 100% be a legitimate business deduction, even though a vacation is sprinkled in there. The key parts for you is to figure out or find ways to deduct the vacation based on what we just talked about. Keeping it legitimate, having great documentation, making sure there's a purpose to it. The people that are coming along with you have a legitimate role in the business. It's very important to follow all the rules. Again, there's more to this than just what we spoke about today, because we could talk about weekend travel and how the IRS views that. We can talk about a whole bunch of other events and things that they mush into travel. But hey, that's for when we have our actual tax planning sessions, because we're not doing it all on one podcast. So again, the IRS doesn't care that you went to Hawaii. They don't. Funny enough. And by the way, international travel is different. We're not going to get into that. What they care about is why you went, what you did there, and can you prove it? Thank you for joining us for this episode of TQ Talks. Follow us on, I don't even know why I try to do that. I can't do that. My son does all that stuff at the end, and that's what we pay him for. So yeah, when we go on vacation, we get to deduct that guy, man. But anyway, thank you again for joining us, and we'll look forward to talking to you next week. Later, guys.
Thank you for listening to TQ Talks. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend on iTunes, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information at tqfinancials.com.